Hi.
Hello. Hello,
Awesome.
everyone. Vinati here, and we have Nada.
Yes. My name is Nada. I am from Egypt and I am actually a freelance. I write fictional characters. I actually have an entire world of fiction characters. But my current job is basically training. And we're going to be talking today, me and Benate, we're going to talk about today the difference between fictional writing and nonfiction writing and thinking, reading, and how do you do your research.
Yes, yes. So, the reason I'm looking down, guys, is I have to send the links out because apparently LinkedIn hasn't been notifying people. So, yeah. Uh, let us know if you guys can hear us. Yeah. Okay. Hello. I think we are visible and we are audible. So let's just jump into it. So I will talk about the non-fiction writing process, guys, and Nada is going to handle the fiction side of things, because we both have different genres, and yet we have common opinions regarding a lot of the writing process, which is what is fascinating, because you don't expect fiction and non-fiction to get along, but they do.
Yes, they do. They do. They have a lot of things in common.
Yes, yes, true, true. So why don't you start, Nada? We've got
Okay.
a bunch of people with us already.
Okay. So the process for fictional writing is, first of all, I'm a huge advocate of research. As I was explaining, the fact that you write, you have a fictional characters is you have a fictional world, and they have certain rules. For instances, let's say in the event of my fictional world is has a lot of like it's based on mythos or mythology. So there is a lot of like heavy references to like the different types of Greek mythology, Roman mythology, Japanese, Indian, and the main character is defined as a race of called ancient race, and the ancient race, they were the original. So you had the original weapon or the original alchemist or the original one. And they are what they do is they have a set of rules. And how about the set of rules came about is because at one point in time they decided that screw the rules, we're going to do whatever we want to do, and they ended up with an entire war on their hand. And based on the war, there was a lot of genocide that happened, which is it's dark, and that's the point of like their race, and that's why they're very melodramatic and very like sober when they're talking. And they ended up having what the war ended up causing the ancient rules, which is basically thou shalt not thou shalt not do genocide, thou shalt not
The
interfere with the
commentaries,
world.
right? The
Yeah, you
commentaries,
will
so to
not
speak.
commit suicide. You're not going to commit genocide. We already tried that, and it did not work well. So we're not going to do that anymore. And there's a lot of like things. There is a lot of rules. There is like thou shalt not interfere with other ancients. So if let's say, which will explain then why, let's say the Nordic or the North people have a whole different set of rules and whole different set of information and whole different set of mythos and history, different from the Babylon, different from Egypt, different because again the ancients were like, okay, everyone's gonna have their little thing, and we're not gonna interfere with each other unless one of these rules gets broken, and therefore you're gonna start finding a story. And the reason why I did that is going now to the real life is the reason why you find stories being repeated throughout different mythos. So you'll find, let's say you'll find Odin, for instances, in Norse. He is the same. You find like the idea of no, the all-knowing person, da 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 da, is repeated again in India, is repeated again in Japanese, is repeated again in Egyptian, in different type of forms of God, is repeated again. Odin is the same thing as Anu in Babylon. It's the same thing. So
It is the same
feeds,
thing, yeah. That
yeah,
is, I
it
think, where
feeds.
research comes into play. When you do research, you will realize how mythology is. It's based around very common theories of existence and solving problems of existence, so to speak. So
Exactly.
yeah. By the way, all the people who are saying hello,
Hi.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. And we are to reiterate something we already said. We are going to discuss a bit of fiction and non-fiction. So, if you have any questions, relevant questions related to that, leave them in the comments. So, we'll be answering those as we go along to ensure that we don't get too deep into nerd conversations because that's
Exactly. Because we ended up we ended up finding we have a lot of in common.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Two completely different genres of writing, and yet love for DC prevailed.
I know DC is awesome. I still think
Yes,
DC is awesome.
yes, I do too. But anyway, so coming to the main topic of discussion, which is reading, thinking, writing,
Yes,
and then editing, of course.
of course.
So, how do you fit that into your process?
Well, I need to read a lot about the different mythology. Because again, I've already set the rule for the world. So world based on mythos. So I have to read all the mythos. I had to read them in different languages. One of the main things is for those who are they're not bilingual or they don't have a different language. Reading something in the native language versus reading the English translation is two different things.
I
There's a
know,
lot
right?
of things. Yes, a lot of things get dropped by between the translations, and I found that when I was reading about Anubis in the Arabic one, in the Egyptian one, when they're talking about him in Arabic, he's a totally different personality. He's like the chillest guy ever. He's like, whatever. He's like, yeah, sure, you're dead. It's okay. We're just gonna do the judgment. We're just gonna go through the formalities. While when you read about him in the English or Wikipedia or things like that, he is like this really
This
strict
is
guy
like
who's like,
ominous
you
of
shall.
his character, right?
I know.
Anubis is like this ticks me off so much because English translators, Western translators are unbelievably guilty about this. They impress their morality on culture, and I'm like, why, guys? Why do you do this?
There's a point. There's a reason why this person is the morality they are. It's because of the context of the situation. You have to
Exactly.
understand. Yeah, same thing with like. That's the same thing in my opinion with like with my pet peeve is with the fictional writers when they don't set the rules for the world and they just go off and I'm like there is a point of view. You have to, there is a rule. You already set the rules. You cannot break your own rules in here.
Yes.
So going back, you have to do your research because if you're going to set your rules, you have to be able to do your research with the rules. One of the things we were discussing was shape shifting. Now, I was explaining we have as a humans we have different fingers. Now, if you're a shapeshifter, let's say you want to change your hand to a, for instance, is a web finger. So that means you're going to move the skin. It's going to go up here. Now, if you pull it, it is painful. So imagine having this one being pulled all the way up. So you can't just be like, hey, this person is shapeshifting and they can shapeshift into anything and there is no consequences for that. There is a consequence for every single action they do was setting those rules and
But
thus
like what
again.
you're saying, makes a lot of sense because if you look at all the descriptions of lycanthropy that exist about the whole werewolf lore, it's like they just say that he started growling or she started growling and transforming and making sounds and scratching. It's a person transforming into a wolf. You can't
Yes.
just make it sound like it's a normal process, and I think that is where J.K. Rowling did it very well, showing
Mhm.
the extremely broken form of the
Yes.
werewolves when they transition in the mood. So I think that is
Mhm.
where the point you're making comes into play. Like look at
Yes.
your characters from a as you were mentioning earlier, from a scientific real world perspective.
Yes. So in the case of the werewolf, you're basically breaking their bones up. So it's like it is going to be painful, and therefore they're
And
not
the
going.
skin turns into fur.
I know exactly. Your hair follicles
what
are actually
what is
growing.
that going to do to the nutrition profile? Like you're going to be dehydrated into hell once that
That's
happens.
yes. You're going to be dehydrated. Therefore, you're very hungry as a werewolf. Therefore, the werewolf actually eats people. It's like hello. It kind of explain, and it's fascinating. It's just fascinating when I see people just go like, "Oh, this person has just started growling," and I'm like going like,
you
Okay.
don't need to there's so much you could do with it. Yeah, I agree with you. And I have literally screamed that book sometimes, going, why, it was so good, then why did you do this?
Or Frankenstein, for instance, is Frankenstein's monster. I mean, that concept of the living dead. You got an electricity person, got an electricity, jump started his systems, and quote unquote became a living dead. Yes, now where's the brain? Is it working? How do you get the nutritions from there? How do you do that? Hi. How do you do
Above
all of
all else, it's a smell. That was one thing I found missing. Like they brought somebody
Yes,
dead back to
yes, there
life.
is supposed to be
Why is
thinking.
there? Yeah, why is that not mentioned? That should be mentioned. And if yeah, I think this is where Bram Stoker did. I think I'm mispronouncing his name, but the guy who wrote Dracula, he did
Mm-hmm.
it pretty well by using Vlad the Impaler to write his book, to define the vampire Count Dracula trope, which
Exactly.
began the vampire trend. He did it,
Yes.
in my opinion. That was done with research. And
Yes, because once you do the research, you're once you start doing your research, then you have you're answering questions. Therefore, if some and the reason why I keep stressing on research is that you will get, as a writer, you will get asked questions like, why is this person like that? For instances, why is this character so evil? Well, because this person has this different types of personality disorders or different types of like mentality or the and my other pet peeve is doesn't mean that every person is evil has a tragic
Nada,
back.
your audio, I think you'll have to shut your mic off and switch it on again because it
Sure,
sputtered towards the end.
sure.
You there?
Okay. Yes, I'm there. Back. We're good.
No, it's still, yeah. Okay. Can you say something so we know whether your audio
Yes.
is
Hi.
okay? Your audio is breaking up.
Oh, okay. Let me try something different. Is this better?
It's still breaking up.
Okay. Let's see what I can do. I'm trying to think out.
See, this is what happens when potato net happens. I had that happen last time where my face was frozen in the middle, but my voice was was audible. So
Okay.
yeah.
I'm going to switch off the disable the audio again and see if it's going to work again or not.
Mm, okay, you can hear us both, right, Rashmi? If you can
Yes,
hear
I
us,
can
then
hear you
it's
both.
good.
Yes. Yes, awesome. We can hear us both. Good. But going back to it, the reason why with research is because, like I said, my other pet peeve is having an evil character have a tragic backstory, and therefore
I,
they are.
I can't hear you at all. This
Okay,
is so frustrating.
it's okay.
On a positive note though, it seems as if some alien is sending me a message in code going nip, 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 nip. I mean, I'm
Okay.
gonna focus on the silver lining there then.
Okay, we could switch to you then, and then we can go back.
I mean, we are live still, but I think what you could do is leave it and join it again. So
Okay, I'm
that
gonna
way
do that.
probably
I'm
that
gonna do
will,
that now. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm gonna do that. Right.
So sorry about this, guys. She's going to be back for sure. We're going to keep talking about it. If you guys have questions related to non-fiction writing, I can help you with that because I'm very good at non-fiction writing, which is a joke because I have so much anxiety about the quality of work I put out. But still, yeah, a lot of research goes into it. I'm currently looking up Medusa. I've been looking her up for 6 months, and the amount of perceptions and amount of literature I've been finding about Medusa the Gorgon, Medusa the victim, Medusa the demon, Medusa the protector. It's fascinating, and the reason why that article is taking so long is because, as Nada kind of recommended, I'm looking at original documents in original languages. Because the thing I found with translations is they were making so many changes to the original text, which is disgusting. But I mean, that's what happens, right? History is written by the victors. So yeah, I'm working on that. I'm writing a piece on Amaterasu, and Nada is back.
Is this
Yes,
better?
yes, it's
Awesome.
perfect. I can see you
Awesome.
and hear you. Okay,
Cool.
so let's continue where we left off, which is characters need to be designed based on certain rules, and then you need
Yes.
to stick to those.
Yes. You need to stick books, and you don't have to go with cliches. If you have an evil character, just because they're evil, it's okay. You don't have to have a tragic backstory to explain that why are they evil. They could be just evil because they are. And you have in history, you actually have examples of that, of people that don't have a tragic backstory, but as perceived by us humans, they're extremely evil.
Yeah, and I think that is one thing that a lot of these narratives turn into cliches, where somebody gives compelling dialogue, and the main villain suddenly stops doing villainous things, and I'm like, real villains don't care. That's why they are villains in the first place. Uh,
Exactly, and the nice person doesn't have to be like. I mean, most nice people in reality, they've been nice because they've seen some crap in their life, and they're like, okay, oh my God, I have to be nice because I don't want anyone else to suffer that.
yeah,
So a happy-go-lucky person is existent. Yes, there are people, there are friends of mine that are actually happy-go-lucky people, and I'm like, okay, they have no tragic. Good. I'm happy for them. They don't have any tragedy. They have not met any hardship, and they're happy-go-lucky personalities. That's there. There's also the person who's seen so much horrible things that their brain just went, I don't want anyone else to suffer. And that's the second thing with fictional. A lot of fictional characters are actually based off real people.
yeah. I have said this so many times already, but I think all forms of writing is autobiographical because we draw from experiences we have either had personally or we have viewed them personally. Either we eavesdropped on a conversation or we were like a casual observer in something that was unfolding. And we go, ooh, okay. So we have a comment here from Rashmi Agarwal who says, I'm just like that, no tragedy in the past. She has actually written a short story on a mulberry tree. And I won't do the plot here because I'm very, very bad at keeping suspense. So I'll shut up about it. But she has drawn on a memory she had from her past and she has woven it into a story. And it is all centered around a tree which bore the mulberry fruit. And I think she wrote the story as an adult by drawing onto experiences she had as a kid. So
Yes,
all of us do that. Like even Bong Joon-ho, the one who wrote Parasite, he was
yes,
actually he was actually a student who went to a rich person's house to tutor their kid, and he felt all that, like the people being judgmental rich people while he
yes,
was the poor person, and he drew onto it and he got an Oscar out of it.
yes.
So draw onto your experiences and bring them to your characters. I think that would be fantastic.
Heck yeah. No, for me, one of my characters, her name is Kitty. She's like the most evil person to ever meet. And basically, what she is she's an illusionist. And how she came about was actually a bet between me and a friend of mine. I was like, I can create a character that's so evil. She doesn't have a back. She doesn't have a tragic line. She doesn't have. I'm like, I'm just gonna take everything that I conceive as evil and just put it into this one person. And the twist is, I'm going to make this person when you first meet her, she has an angelic aura around her. She's everything. She's like has the wings and everything of the angel.
Siren,
And
like a siren basically, right? Like a very
ex-
beautiful woman who
exactly,
comes.
she's like the Arankar from the Japanese one. Is basically she has this like beautiful thing. She's amazing. She and one of the rules of ancients is they never lie. They cannot and do not know. However, they can say half truth.
Hmm. What's
And
your
that's what,
name? My name is blah blah blah. What's your real
you
name?
know, yeah,
That's
what's your real name? My real name is, like, she comes up with so many different names. And because throughout history she shows up in different names. And then one of the things is, the other side is her quote unquote sister is actually her caretaker. Basically, what happened was, with Kitty, was she was spared at a whim. Like, basically, one of the agents went, "Nope, we're not going to kill her. It's like, she's just a hatchling. We can't kill kids. We can't kill a child. That's just no." So they saved her, and doing so, they ended up unleashing an evil they did not even expect, because this is a hatchling, this is a kid. I mean, and she gets raised by two very moral people. I mean, they've instilled everything. They instilled, like, chivalry, everything, and she just goes like, "Nope, we're not dealing with that. We're doing this way."
so
And
she's a pure anarchist, right? In that
she
sense.
is a pure anarchist. She puts the Joker to shame. That's how, if you're ever a DC fan and you know the Joker, she puts the Joker to shame. She's like, "Nope, here I am." Like, she's like, "Oh, what you're doing is like child's play to what I do." She causes, like, massive civil wars. She wipes out realms, like an entire realm. She'll just wipe it out. She will trick the residents of that realm to break an ancient rule, and based on that, they are no longer protected by that ancient. So let's say, Atlantis, for instance, she will trick them to, let's say, cause some sort of, like, genocide, because there is no genocide. So she'll let them cause genocide, and then the Poseidon or whoever's ruling over there will be like, "Nope, can't protect you anymore," and she will just swipe in and goes like, "Well, guess who's the executioner?" And she will
Yeah.
just go like, "I am the execution. I am the trickster, and at the same time I'm the executioner." So she comes in, wipes the entire thing, and it's legit. And nobody can tell her. Everyone knows what she's doing is evil, but you can't really go like, "Hey, you can't do that." It's like, well, they broke the rules, didn't they? Yes. And according to the laws, I have to execute them. Yes. So it's like, and the way they finally get her is she screws up. She's so cocky because she's been understand that she's been doing this for thousands and thousands of years. So she
Cocky
gets
and experienced.
she's a cocky, she's experienced, and she goes like, "You know what, screw this, I'm doing it this way." And she goes in and does an execution without even prompting the execution. And the moment she does that, then everyone was like, "Okay, she broke the rules. Let's everyone." So you get all the different ancients for the first time in thousands and thousands of years. They just join forces and they're like, "We're gonna take you down." And it's an epic battle because she has amassed an entire amount of power, and she breaks. You discover throughout the story she breaks a lot of rules, but she does it legitimately. So to the point when they finally actually meet her, she's too powerful, too power hungry, and she's like, "You know what? Sure, bring it on." And it takes actually Death himself to actually interfere and go like, "Hey, it's your time. Guess what? You're dying." And that finally, in the end, was like he finally hands in the final blow, and he's like, "Okay, we're done." And he never intervenes the entire time. Death does not intervene. He's like, "You know what? I can't do anything. It's not their time." They're like, "But she's doing all of this nasty thing. Can you not just?" And one of the things that happens after the battle is like they're like, "You could have stopped that at any point in time, and you chose to not to stop it." And he goes like, "It is
Rules.
not. It's not. It's the rules, and my job is not to intervene." And then he actually points out that should has he intervened back in that day, they were gonna have another evil person that was far worse than she is. And the people go like, "Wait, how?" And they're like, "The queen, like the queen of the ancients. If it wasn't for the fact that this hatchling has been so evil that this queen has been concentrating on trying to stop this one. Understand that by the way, the queen of the ancient is a weapon, like she's a sentient weapon, and she goes
Right.
like, guess what's going to happen with the weapon if it doesn't have a moral compass? That's it.
True.
I need to
So,
introduce you to it. Yeah, I'm sorry, that's my kid.
oh, that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. He's like
So,
screaming. Anyways,
that's
but that's basically it. That's why that's where the research came in. That's how thinking goes in with it. When you're thinking, you're writing from the beginning of, and you're in your brain. You're like, okay, I'm gonna have the ending be this, and then you're gonna have different alternative endings just in case. And I have to thank a friend of mine. His name is Macvale. He owns a character called the Roomkeeper, and that character, I was like, before I had finished my story, that character, I basically put a lot of the plot holes into like place, and he's like, I'm like, his character basically, because his character is a realm jumper, like, and a time traveler. So a lot of the things that Koruga did not make sense within our history, it could be all literally just swooped up and goes like, well, it's the roomkeeper's job to put history in its proper way. So that's why you can't hear a lot of these characters you have not heard. And the queen, her name is Migu. Migu goes like, there are a lot of truth. You just pick the truth you like,
mm, yeah.
and
I
that's
think Chernobyl, HBO's miniseries Chernobyl did a very nice play on this,
yeah.
showing the USSR and how they broke truth.
And that's the beauty of fiction writing is you get as much as you get the creativity freedom you want to. You have a set of rules, and then in the end, you're trying. The conclusion of this, in the end of a fictional writing, you have your characters, you have your setup, you have your story, but it's because you did all of that research that you did in the beginning. One of my characters, I had to change her name because I thought Latin was like the quote unquote like the first spoken word, and I'm like, okay, and I got proven wrong very fast. So I had to literally learn a second, like a dead language, and be like, okay, this character's name is this, but her also name is the other one, and so on and so forth. At the same time, I was like, you know what? The other thing is because of all of the different research, so I had to be like, okay, if I'm to put this one, if I already had made the rules, we already made everything, what are we supposed to do? And then how are you supposed to put the powers? Because one of the questions I got was, why is the Greek, okay, another thing is the Greek gods are very weak. And they're like, why are they weak? I'm like, because if I was to put them in a true battle royale, between them, the Indian deities and like the Nordic deities and like the Babylon deities, Babylon is gonna pretty much wipe them out because they have one deity, Ereshkigal, who is the queen of Irkala, and Irkala is basically their version of hell. I'm like, she basically single-handedly rules this entire thing, is able to force her sister, who's Ishtar, who's the queen of the heavens, to actually trap her in Irkala. She's trapping her, strips her out of her authority. I mean, this one personality is able to do all of this destruction. So, yeah, I mean, that's why she.
Also, Greek mythology, they were so busy
Yeah, they
interfering
were
in each
busy. They
other's
were busy.
lives. They were
Exactly.
busy interfering in each other's lives and human beings. If they got attacked, pretty sure they would be busy, meddling somewhere rather
They're
than.
meddling each other's problem. They have a lot of problems. I mean, they cannot handle. I mean, they cannot handle the same planning strategy. Um,
Yeah.
it took one of the things with Ereshkigal. It took Gilgamesh literally 3 days to get himself out of the underworld. Him and Enkidu. So it's
And
fascinating.
with and with them, it's like give them a coin, you can go wherever you want.
Mhm.
So that yeah, see, that's what research is. You can
Exactly. So that's why when you did the post about the person saying, the influencer saying, you don't need to read. I'm saying, going like, it took me, for me to create my characters. It took me over 12 years to finally reach to the point where they are here, because I had to do so much reading. So I can answer every single question that people. I had people asking me questions. They're like, okay, with the death thing, I was like, well, you have in in your characters, you have death itself is there. Is a person for you have a personification of death. Can't he just solve everything? I'm like, well, guess what? They also have rules. They cannot just go and interfere everything. And you get the answer at the end of why. Well, you could have done that from the beginning. Why? Well, because. And there's a reason for everything, and everything is, in the end, it is kind of a cautionary tale of, hey, you know what? First of all, the cautionary tale, the main thing is, yes, I am actually a story writer, but I'm a hobby story writer, not do not have a thing. Actually, Fictember has been my excuse to actually show my characters. But anyways, um,
Oh, we love
yeah.
that you have started writing. And one of the main reasons I was so excited to talk to you was you were writing, you were packing a punch with every prompt, and you were incorporating these characters in to the prompts, and it was like this is also something that can actually happen. And as I said, I'm not a fiction writer, I'm a non-fiction writer, but I think inherently people want to become people who come into writing, most of them come with the aspirations of writing fiction someday. At least the
Mhm,
ones that I've talked to tell me this. So it's like
mhm,
I've been writing for 9 years. Let
mhm.
me like dip my toe into fiction writing. And thankfully, the community of LinkedIn came together and they were like, okay, let's do it together. So
Exactly.
I'm so,
Have fun with
so
it. Enjoy it. It's a lot of creativity. You can do a lot of creation with it. And again, the whole point of it is just you're free to do whatever you want to do, as long as you have your own, you've done your thing. And the writing, eh, the beauty of fictional writing is that it reaches to a point where I always joke around and be like, you hear your characters in your head. You hear like this character going like, oh no no no, I'm not doing that. I was like, do you think I'm gonna do that? Hell no, I'm not doing that. It's like you're supposed to do that. No 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 no. I am gonna do this instead of that. And it's hilarious because your brain going like, you're saying go like, well, your character, you're my creation. I am not. You're a figment of my imagination. So stop talking into my head and being like, hey, you need to do this. It's like, no, we're not doing this. We're doing it this way. And you end up. The one of the other things with these characters, especially if you've been doing it for a very long time, is they become a defensive mechanism. If you have a bad day, you're hearing all of these voices going on top of your head, going like, "Hey, it's okay, it's a bad day today, but don't worry about it. Tomorrow's gonna be good." Or you hear somebody going like in your head, going like, "Oh, come on, just shut up and just go ahead and like just get up." And you're going like, "Why did I create this character?" I have like one of my characters is a blunt person, and basically that's basically how they talk. Is like, oh, just shut up. It's like, oh, why are you wallowing on this? Like, it's like, hey, I have bad days as well. It's like, just stop wallowing. It's like, well, with me, just shush, shh, go. And there's like motherly killer characters, and yes, Anna, you're right. Start with the Y, and then everything gets creative. It's embarrassing sometimes because you'll be sitting down sometimes talking with a person and you're going like, and they're like, oh, how did he come up with this idea? And you're going like, I came up with this idea. And you just don't want to tell them that you have like 1,000 voices going in your head going like, hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you do this? And it's
I
like,
know.
and
I kind of relate to this, even if I don't have characters. But I'm a fan of many fictional characters that exist. So in some given situation, I'll be dealing with it, and in my head, I'll hear someone, go, "Really, you want to do
really, you
that?"
want to do this? Like, yeah, really, you want to do this? Are you an idiot to do this? Like,
Yeah, I know.
I'm
And
not an
I mean,
idiot.
I relate. I relate with this so hard. And I mean, if I cannot even imagine what it feels like to have your own characters rebuke you in your head, going, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, you get your. My two main ones are Miguro and Kitty. Miguro is like the motherly voice, and she's like very blunt. She most of the times is when I do something, and she'll like sit down. She'll be like, "You are an idiot for doing this." It's like, "Hello, hi, hi. Can you just speak a little bit quiet?" And she'll be like, we can do it this way. And I'm like, no, we're not doing it this way. We're doing it that way. And there's like an argument going on. And finally, in the end, I was like, the moment I hear the word, I hear, I'm like, okay, I'm like, whatever you're saying, we're gonna do whatever you're saying. We're not doing whatever you. And it's hilarious because, like I said, it's sometimes it helps you when you're in your bad days, when you're stressed out and you just want to switch off a little bit. You're just closing your eyes and you can just be in this world that you've created. But it's a double-edged sword because you get so invested in it and so invested in the situation that you end up, it becomes an escapism. You just want to escape, like it's the first escape thing. So you as a personality cannot actually deal. Let's say you have a horrible thing that happens in your life, God forbid, and you can't handle it, you cannot process it. So you go into this world that you've created, and you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna not deal with this. I'll be in my own world, and it becomes, you end up losing a lot of the things that you have. And that's something that I've realized with my kids, is because sometimes when I'm a single mom, so when I first had my kid, it's hard to like juggle them. And then I used to escape a lot, but then I was like, my 9-year old would come to me and be like, uh, Earth to mom, can you please come here? Like, get back. And I'm like, what do you want? She goes like, I want this, could you do this? And I realized that because I used to escape a lot, I didn't really wasn't in the now with them. Now that I'm in the now with them, it's like it's fun. I get to watch my kid do the her she invented her own little dance now. It's called the crab dance, and she basically puts her hands up and starts doing like a crab thing, which is hilarious. But I started enjoying a lot more with going on with what this one. And I've realized a lot because I used to escape a lot, that you don't have. And that's one of the drawbacks of being a fictional writer, is because of the world you've created and because of how intricate and how wonderful it is, with the bad things in it as well, you end up losing yourself in there, and you end up losing yourself, and you losing, not losing it, you're like, you don't go crazy, but you just end up being like, I don't want to deal with reality now, I'm just going to be in my little world, and just go into my little world and just stay there for as long as I can, as long as humanly possible. I'll stay there and I'll be there because it's much more controllable. It's much more fascinating. It's better. I get to, like, I can ride on a griffin and just fly away, and I don't have to worry about
Yeah.
bills. You don't have to worry about like what are they gonna eat today? What are they gonna do today? What are they gonna? You don't have to worry about all of this. You just be in your own little world. And then when reality sets in, it's such a disappointment from like your own world. So you just like, I want to go back there. But then you feel, which is again why I absolutely adore Mac for this. Mac does this thing where he goes like, yeah, I know this is an fantasy world. We love this world, but we need to go back to reality, and we need to spend more time in reality because this is where we are now, and this is the importance of it. And you miss, and he has a half full. The difference between me and him is he has a half full point of view of everything. Everything is he can find like the positive thing, and the worst things you can just find something positive. I'm like more of the realistic, going like, this is not working. It's like, no, it's gonna work. It's like, no, 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 it's not gonna work. And that's final. That's why, that's again with the fictional writers, is you do. So in conclusion, you do your research, you think about the rules, you start doing writing, and be sure that you don't get lost in your own world. It is so full. You, Anna, you are absolutely correctly. It is so full of responsibilities, but you, in the words of my own character, you can find wonders in your own responsibilities, and it is what it is. So you suck it up and deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much. Yeah, or I agree is such a bad answer. But that's when something said makes so much sense. Yeah, I relate with what you said. I haven't created characters like this, but yeah, I do tend to have a bad habit of getting lost in the great fiction that I have read, and to a large extent, some of the main reason why I have rejected actual people in real life has been because I am living there in that
Yes,
realm of, and then real life happens, and you're like, this is so disappointing. I'm gonna backtrack and go back
yes,
into
I'm gonna
fiction.
exactly. I'm gonna run back to fiction because the people there are. It's they're not as complex as real human beings are. Yeah,
Mm.
even no matter how complex your character is, it still is like an eighth of
Character.
how
It's a
complex.
character. Yeah, it
Yeah,
doesn't
it's a
exist.
character and with rules and regulations, and they're as complex as they are. They're still not as complex as humans are. So you can predict what they're going to say. You can predict what they'll do. But with real life people, it's harder to predict because you don't know their background. You don't know what they're how where they're coming from, their culture.
Mm.
My culture, I'm from Egypt, so we have traditions in here that maybe in India, will people will look at it and will be like, you guys are weird. Or I have some stuff from the Indian culture, I'll look at it, I'll be like, why are they doing that? One of the
I
things.
actually know this personally because under ISET, I had a friend called Tasneem who came and
Mhm.
lived for a student exchange from Egypt. And I invited her to my college. And she was so shocked at the way Indian youth was going about. We had a tech fest going on in the college. And she's like, how are you guys being so undisciplined? How are you playing music in your college and stuff like that? And I'm
Yes.
like, this is something that happens twice a year in almost every college. And then she, mentioned certain things about engineering colleges in Egypt, which I was shocked when I found out. So
Oh,
I
you
was
do not
like,
talk back to your professor. In Egypt, you do not talk back to your professor. If your professor
she
tells you
told me,
something,
she told
and you
because
do not
my
question them.
my
Yeah, you do
principal
not.
was talking to all the foreign exchange students and me, and I told sir that no, no, sir, you are wrong. And she was like, you said your sir is
Yes,
wrong.
you do
How
not
could
tell them
you?
they're wrong. They're absolutely correct. Everything they say is correct. If you tell them that they are wrong, you are in a world of trouble because
Yeah.
they will target you as I have seen professors that are good, but I've seen professors that will target students if they prove them, especially if you prove them that they are wrong. They're like, "Oh, so you're the professor now? Why don't you take that chapter and actually teach it?" And they will actually walk out of the room, and you are stuck now teaching that. Yes, I've seen that. I've seen that unfortunately happen. I was actually one of the most of my professors. I studied in the U.S., so the U.S. is kind of like India. You can actually walk up to your professor and be like, "Hey, I want to debate you on this topic." Actually, in the US, they will actually encourage students to debate. It's like, if you think that I am wrong, debate me and explain to me why I'm wrong. And sometimes professors, on purpose, they will say something that is wrong on purpose because they
Makes
encourage
sense.
that debate. Yeah, they don't want. One of my professors' name was Professor Eric, and Professor Eric would always say, "I don't want you to be sheep. I want you to
Okay.
think for yourself. I want you to debate." And he would debate us on everything from what we believed in all the way to like whatever the class was. He was business law. So whatever this law is. So why do you think this law is a good law? No? Or why do you think this law is a bad law? And he would debate us on our beliefs. Like if somebody was a Christian, he would be like, I don't believe in God. See, and we'll be like, most people will be shocked. They're like, oh, what? Like, but I think everything happens for random, and you will literally have to debate with him. And either if you're a strong believer, you will actually even be a stronger believer because you're going, okay, he's making me think now. He's making me think of why do I believe these certain things.
Mhm.
And I was fortunate with my professors. I had professors that were a lot that wanted you to think. I had professors that were kind. I also had the bad professors, but they were a rarity, the bad ones, and we knew
The
them.
ones who are
Like
too good to balance out the bad ones.
the good ones, I was fortunate to have a lot of the good ones. My political science professor was all about. Actually, one of his the reason why I talk so when we talk about genocide and things like that, one of the things that he was is he actually one of the projects he would put was he would put you in Hitler's brain. He goes like, okay, you're Hitler now. What are you gonna do? And we're like, not cause World War
We don't
II.
don't think like that, right? See, that's a fabulous
Yeah,
point you brought out, because I have had so many fights with editors these days, because I also try to do some opinion pieces about conflicts, non-fiction, of course. And whenever we try to present a well-rounded point, including opinions and thought processes of people who committed the crime, because crime doesn't just happen randomly. There is a
exactly.
lot of things and a lot of context that goes into it. They don't want to print the context.
Nope.
They only want the virtue signaling. And I'm like, guys, what is the point of writing the article then? Because you are literally telling people, look at what this bad person did, but see what we are not doing, and look at how amazing our news is. And like, oh
There's a
my god.
context for everything. There is, like, for instance, is with Hitler. Okay, sorry, I'm talking about Hitler, but with Hitler, you have to understand that Germany was in such a bad economic time, and they just came out of a war. It's horrible. Living standards are extremely horrible. They're asked to pay other people. I mean, they're broke and they're asked to pay for other people. So
Treaty
all
of
of a sudden, this guy comes up, goes like,
It was
yes,
so unfair, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire was the one to be blamed,
yes.
not not 100%, but most of it. But the blame was lumped on Germany, so no
Exactly. So,
wonder
so, so,
calling
so
them
this
one of
guy comes up, tells them, "Hey, it's not your fault that these guys are doing all of this. We should actually be." And then he went on to what currently we see currently in the U.S. happening, which is the whole white supremacy.
the US. I'm telling you, it's happening everywhere. India also has something similar happen,
Yeah.
where one party is like, we are not at fault, other party is like, populism, populism, populism. Right? This is what we have, and the populism people are winning out, because all they are doing is, you, as you said, it's not your fault. You guys are amazing, and then
Yes.
it takes away all the attention from the actual problems, and people
Exactly.
are fighting, and no news outlet is willing to show this or print this. And like, when you submit the article, they pay you for it, but they
Mhm.
don't publish it. This is how hypocritical and how awful the entire the entire system has become. So I've had so many fights, and I'm so frustrated by this. And
I I feel you. I feel you. Like I said, and thing is, history repeats itself. When people say history repeats itself, yes, history repeats itself in different ways. What's currently happening currently in a lot of the world, it happened back in World War II. If you're literally, it's exactly it's like a repeat of what happened before World War II. So that's why a lot of the quote unquote historians are going like, "Hey, watch out! You guys are currently going on a road that it is going to be
does not end
disastrous.
well. It does
It's
not
not gonna
end well.
end." And then the people are like, "Hey, we're doing it the 155th time. We're gonna do it right." It's like, no, 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 no. 155th time, it's not gonna be right. It's going to again. There's a reason why history it happened. There's a reason why we have, which is why again, which is going back to writing for non-fictional writing with history.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, coming on a slight tangent here, but if we look at the media sort of coverage of almost everything right now, we have politicians, the elites, the intelligentsia, and the experts all telling us we are bad, like humanity is bad. All the bad things that you could possibly say about a person, and people feel self-hatred, right? They do, because when you are bombarded with negativity from all directions, at some point it's going to subconsciously affect you. And then you
Hmm.
have these unbelievably charismatic men
Yes.
and women who come out and tell you, it's not your fault, you are awesome, they are the problem.
Hmm.
Look at how toxic the online versus, and I've seen some of these fights happen offline as well, where friends are standing and discussing something and someone makes a snide comment and they start fighting on the spot, and it's like, who wins from this? Nobody.
Nobody
Because
wins.
we have shown us nobody cares. And I went on a
Yeah,
rant, but it's so frustrating. I had one fight today morning again because they wanted me to add adjectives to a piece by
Mm-hmm.
putting certain words in front of certain nationalities and stuff. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
guys, seriously, you want to call people horrible adjectives and you want to say you presented a well rounded, nice article.
Nope.
Like, yeah, you can just go and in India we say chullu or pani mein dubo,
Yes.
which is get a little bit of water in your hand and
Mhm.
drown.
Yeah. Yes. No, we have same say we have something similar to it in Egypt, and I cannot say it because it requires a lot of bad words, and I'm not going to say the bad words. It's
It's
true.
okay.
Yeah,
We
no,
have already said Hitler on this, so probably
I
a lot of
know it's like literally we have a saying in Egypt. It's, when we talk about people like this, we goes like these people are the type of people. دهنا الهوا دوكو basically means we painted the wind. And it's said when we say this, when we say it on a person who's extremely dumb, extremely stupid, and this person is not really well in their brains. And it's said also on people who kind of brag about things, but they're not really, they don't have any substances behind their brag. So we're like,
yeah,
I'm like dukha. We all say go dukha, which means nah, don't.
yeah.
But
We just have an expression which is जाने दो ना उसको ऐसा ही है. This person is like this only.
yeah,
Ignore them. So,
it's again, and that's a different thing. It's fascinating how it's common. We have a lot of things in common as humans, especially with the expressions. People will say things, and that's why. And then going back again to to the point with the U.S. is, I get really annoyed with the U.S. with one part is when they start projecting their problems to the entire world. It's like it's just an entire world's problem. Like saying like, no, it's not. It's your problem.
well,
But
that
we
happens because
sympathize and empathize with you. Just don't pretty much don't get us into your like. Don't say that. For instance, with the Black Lives Matter, and they say that there's racism in the entire. I'm going like, no, there is not. I'm like, here in Egypt, we don't have like the whole different things of like blacks and whites. We do not have that.
yeah,
Our discrimination is our discrimination is based on socioeconomics. It's a different and family names.
exactly.
So
Same in India, we have caste, which creates discrimination. Like the most discrimination happens based on caste, and if based on color, people are like, "Huh, I am
yeah,
this
the
color."
color is like, yeah, we're all this color. It's like, who cares? But then it's like you're of a certain family and you get like a lot of positives in your life because you're of a certain family, and it drives me insane. I'm one of the privileged people. My family name gives me a lot of uh, advantages, especially when a lot of people go like, "Oh, you're from this family." I'm like, "Yes, I am," and they're like, "Oh, awesome! Hi, how you do?" And they have this preconceived notion that anybody from this family is certain types of characters. While my cousin, her because of her from her dad's side, she doesn't have the same strength as my family name. So she gets treated bad, and I'm sitting there like, we're family, and I'm like, we're literally family. We're literally everything is common. The only thing is my dad's name versus her dad's name, and that's it. And she gets discriminated against for that. And I'm just gonna go like, so when we talk in Egypt, when we talk about discrimination, we talk about more of a tribal thing. It's like you belong to this family, therefore you are this one. While other people are like, yeah, that like again with the color thing is like, I don't care really. I really don't care.
Yeah, but
I'm
then
seeing
you get
a yes in here. I'm guessing you're either an Arabian or you're like part of the tribal section of like where they have a lot of
yeah,
tribals in here.
app is not showing us the names yet.
Yeah.
I think show the names later on.
Mhm.
Again coming to the thing that you mentioned earlier, which is context. So United States has a history of color based racism, right? Like they have a
Yes.
history. So to them that makes sense, but to us, because we don't discriminate based on color, we discriminate based on certain other qualities. So they what gets me is we are backwards because we discriminate based on caste. They aren't
Yeah.
backwards because they discriminate based on color. So when narratives like this get peddled without proper context, this is where I get annoyed because if see almost every country, almost every nationality, not almost every nationality has a way they do things,
Yes.
and massive context behind that. You can't
Yes.
just write the context off.
No, it's not. Another thing about Egyptians is up until 2000s, up until Morsi, we didn't have a discrimination against Christians, like Coptic
Uh-huh.
Christians and Muslims. They were normal, and then Morsi comes in and starts creating this little tension between the Coptic Christians and the Muslims. So now, when Sisi came in, he's now trying to fix that problem because all of a sudden there's this new thing that we just new sort of discrimination that we're sitting and go like, wait, when did that happen? We never had
It
that
hits you.
problem.
It hits you. It just comes and hits you because you don't see it in real life.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
I have a Coptic friend, and we were talking about salaries. And the moment she told me her salary, I was sitting going like, "How much are you making?" And she goes like, "I'm making this much." I'm going like, "That is so unfair," because I realized that she was making literally about an eighth of what I'm making for the same job, and I'm saying, "Oh, like, wait,
that's
why?"
because that is discrimination, right? Quite
That
out
and
in
that
the
is
open.
that is the definition of discrimination. But then again, like I said, now with CC going on, he's actually fixing this one. He's starting to fix it, and that's good because we don't want. Also, was reading actually some tribal communities in India are affected by this bias. Oh, that is interesting.
I think that
But
is Sudeshna. Is LinkedIn user you Sudeshna who said yes, absolutely, stuff like that? I think it is Sudeshna. I'm pretty sure I can decipher the language. She's the person I did the first live with.
oh,
Yeah,
awesome. Hi.
yeah.
But yeah, again, it's you start seeing new types of like with the life goes on, you start seeing new types of this one. Anyways, I think I took a lot of time. I'm sorry.
Oh, please, no. See, the reason why this is not scripted, why there's not like a green screen in the background where text is running on the top and stuff like that is because one thing that I think which is missing from the online space is not missing thanks to podcast culture now, but real voices are not getting represented, right? We have experts come out and make weird predictions that have nothing to do with ground realities. We have news people doing God knows what. Uh,
Oh, I
and
know.
we have politicians who only do things that peddle their agenda. So, in that, what happens is the
I feel
real
sorry.
voices get lost.
Yeah, I feel sorry for some of the politicians. I'm just going like, because my master's is international studies, so I study politics, and pretty much I'm just going like, no, this is not what we learned. This is not what we learned. What we learned is something totally different, and it's fast again, which is again, and then goes back again to the writing again, and back again to like nonfiction and fiction writing is again because a lot. One of the things that I tell people, if you've ever read Stephen King's Dead Zone, look at Greg Stallion from Greg Zone and look at Donald Trump, and tell me you do not see the similarities between the two. It's like Stephen King basically.
No, I can't unsee that now.
I know I'm very sorry, but that is actually
Don't apologize. It was right there
is
in my face.
I know it's like right there in your face, but it's just like nobody actually saw the connection. And then like, but now you can't. You're saying I'm like I can't unsee this actually because you're going like wait a second. Yes, that is actually it's exactly the same thing. That's the true, and that's again Stephen King's book came out way before Donald Trump came into power. But you can see how fiction is and how the fiction goes, how fiction is based in reality as well. Because Stephen King, basically, when Stephen King explained Greg Stallion, he was like, I imagined the boogeyman for me. What would be the worst case scenario that could happen? And I projected that onto Greg Stallion. And he's like, all of a sudden now I am actually seeing my boogeyman being a reality. And I know as a writer, I know exactly what's going on. I know what might happen, but I
That's
just
amazing.
yeah, I hope it does not happen. But which
It
hopefully it's
happens,
not.
right? It does
Yeah,
happen. Unconsciously, I think it ends up happening.
it ends up because you're self-prophesizing. You're like, I think this. I do not want this one to happen, but you're self-prophesizing, and you end up subconsciously. What you end up doing is you end up causing the actions that cause that thing to happen. which and that's the power of writing. That's why one of the things we advise people is write your thoughts. If you have some, especially if you have dark thoughts, write them down, because what you end up seeing is you end up seeing how your subconscious is actually feeding into your own. For instance, if you think yourself, one of the things was I'm useless. Well, because I think I'm useless, therefore I'm not going to do anything. Therefore, yes, I will be useless because I'm not doing anything to
Mm.
improve myself. However, and that's why again, that's where the characters come in. And when you have your own characters, they will come into your head and be like, they'll kind of knock you down a little bit and be like, hey, you're useful. You just great. And one of the things that usually says is, look what you've created. Look at this entire world you've created out of nothing. Don't call yourself useless, because guess what, you just created this. You've created an entire, or if you're down on yourself, or if you think you're, one of the other things is people might think that they're a bad person. Like if you have a villain, your villain is going to be actually the one talking to you and be like, hey, don't even think yourself as a villain, because guess what, I mean, I, the villain, do not see you as a threat. I don't see you. I don't see you as even an equal. And they will talk. Your villain will talk down to you, but in that talking down, they're actually improving your morale. You're like, oh no, I'm not that bad of a person, and so
Yeah,
on
you
and
you
so
feel
forth.
you go defensive against your own will and going, yeah, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, your villain literally talks to you and be like, hey, don't know how to talk about it. It's like, it's like, shut up. You're gonna be fine. Don't worry about it. And your
I
own
can
character.
erase you. Like, you know
Yeah,
what? I can
it's like,
erase you. Shut
yeah,
up.
it's like exactly. It's like don't eat this, and so on and so forth. And that's again, and that's why again, it's an extremely difficult thing. It is exceptionally healing. It's writing is it's cathartic. One of the other things that I started writing is, and if you might find it on my LinkedIn, is I started personifying emotions, literally having emotions be the person's talking to you, and you are in this story, you are the host. I'm currently writing the second arc of Pain, but I'm having a hard time writing it because pain as an emotion is very complex. You get introduced first to pain as just this person who's just like talking down to you, but then you realize that there's a much more complexity behind it. And it takes a second emotion called loneliness to actually point that out and point out that, wait a second, pain is not here. Pain is not there to bring you down. It's not there to make you be. It's not there to take you down. It's actually there to
Right.
strengthen you and help you to grow up. Because in the end, if it wasn't for pain, you would not know the blessing of, you would not know the blessing of the joy of life. You're alive. That's why you feel pain. That's why you're hurt. And then it goes, and then it talks and go, and when Loneliness talks, he's like, would you want to have a blissful life where there is no pain? Then what's the point of it?
Yeah,
And
yeah. Uh, to quote Batman, why do we fall? So that we could rise again. Why do we
exactly,
fail pain? So that we can appreciate the moments where there's no pain.
exactly. When you're
And
succeeding, you're appreciating.
Buddhism is where you should go in for kind of really having amazing thoughts about pain, because Buddhism asks us to not just experience pain, not just accept pain. It asks us to experience it so
Yes,
that we could see past it towards enlightenment. And
that is true.
I'm an atheist myself. I'm not into being a religious person, but I have tremendous respect for religious beliefs, because the core message that they give is amazing.
Yes.
And go ahead.
No, the Quran, in the Quran, when they talk about pain, in the Quran actually states that when Allah is talking to you, He goes like, "I created you to suffer," and you're like saying, "Oh, like why?" And then like the next, what we have is an ayah. The next ayah is like, so that then you can actually start learning and start growing. And basically, what it means is you start growing. So,
Mm,
and basically, and the way we perceive suffering is that um, the more you suffer in life,
mm,
and that's a way of Allah showing that He does love you, because He is saving, because we believe in heaven and hell. So He's saving heaven for you. That's why you're freely suffering now. He's like trying to erase any sin that you have created. He's erasing it through that suffering, and therefore you're gonna be in a much better place. So a lot of the people do not like when they think about it. They're like, okay, that's why a lot of Muslims, when you talk to them and they talk about having a bad day, they're like, you know what, I'm. They will say the word Alhamdulillah, which means thank God, or God is,
Yeah.
or Allah is merciful. And what they mean here is, it's not. First of all, I've learned a lot of different religions because of, again, reading my characters. I had to read into Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, thing like that, and they all have that part where it's like, hey, God is merciful or Buddha is merciful because he's teaching you through that pain. He's telling you that, hey, you're gonna be fine. You know what? I'm teaching you now. I'm letting you live this. I know it's bad. I know it's horrible, but you're gonna live through it, and you're gonna grow as a person, and you're gonna
Test
be
of faith, right? I think that is the
exactly. You're
common
gonna you're
theme.
gonna be a
Test of
better. Exactly, you're going to be a better person because, and the reason why they say you're going to be a better person is because you've already seen the bad things. So, as a human, you've seen the bad, you've seen the consequences of the bad. So you're like, I'm not going to do this again because I know the consequences and I don't want to feel that pain again. So you start doing better stuff, and that's a lot of, that's why I hate preachers, because preachers always talk about you shall be suffer, you shall go to hell. I'm like, no, that's not what our religions are. All of the religions, including Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, they all talk about the good things. They talk about, hey, you're gonna screw up. It's part of being a human is you're gonna screw up, but you are gonna end up living in a much better life.
Yeah. I mean, it is about God being God loving people. Religion, technically, if you read the texts, I haven't read the Quran in the original language, but I've read the translation.
Mhm.
And you see the theme running across almost all of them, which is, as you mentioned, live a life based on certain rules and commandments,
Yep.
and have faith in yourself, in your God, in your abilities, and in the people around you, right?
Yes.
And just keep living. That's it. And the religions ask us to be God loving, but
Mhm.
preachers ask us to be God fearing. I think that is
Exactly, and
where.
that's not the case. You should never fear. And the Quran, He said, Allah does say, you should not fear me. You should. I love you. I absolutely love you. I love every person. Yes, you will be punished if you do something bad, but even when they talk about hell and heaven, for at least for those who have lived their life in a good way, it says that, yeah, you're going to end up going to hell for a little bit, but then you're going to go to heaven after you pay your dues in hell. You're going to end up going in heaven again. You're going to go up in a little bit of a less level, but still you're going to end up going to heaven, which is what you get in Christianity. Christianity goes like, oh, everyone's going to go to heaven, but there's no consequences. If you do bad, if you do good, you're going to go to heaven. And like, as long as you believe in Jesus Christ. And I'm like, yeah, the Quran then takes that part and goes like, no, you are going to go to heaven, but you need to be a
Eventually.
be a good person. And if you are a bad person, you are going to still go to heaven, but after you have like suffered a lot in hell to pay your dues, so that you have the right to go to heaven. And the common knowledge with religion is, when you talk about religion, which is going back, if you look at it as a story, which is what I like doing with everything, is you look at it
Same,
as
same.
exactly, the Quran, the Judaism, Christianity, all of that. You look at it as a story. When you talk about it, and when you talk to people about it, and when you learn more about it, um, it's common sense. Like it says, "Do not lie." Okay, everyone knows why we should not lie. Then when it says, "Do not steal," "Do not kill," well, again, it's common knowledge why we should not steal, we should not kill. But then in Quran says, let them be themselves, and let them have their religion, or have their, if they're atheists, let them be atheists. Do not preach on them. Do not shove it into their throats and go like, hey, you need to be a Muslim. And if you and let you have your own religion, and then it's up to Allah to finally judge if that is, because also in the Quran it says that there are people. that are not Muslims who are going to go to heaven because they've
But
led
people,
a they've led a good life. They've done everything. All they have left is just like the whole like we always joke around and be like all that is left is just the shahada and they're going to be Muslims. They're going to be a better Muslims than the Muslims themselves. But yeah, there are people who are not the same religion as I am, or not the same religion as anyone, or are atheists that are so much better than people who are extremely religious and like, and that goes to extremism. Extremism in anything is bad.
yeah,
Um,
you close yourself off to so much in terms of perspectives and knowledge because you're like, this is the only truth.
no, it's not the only, and that's again that we go back to again. It's not the only truth. Your truth, they're different. It's just what I love about a lot of what I love about like stories is because they make you love the character or either hate the character. And as a preacher, you're a storyteller, so you're going to either make the person love your story and then love that religion and embrace that religion, or they're going to absolutely hate it and be like, hey, I don't want it. And when people say, well, I've actually had that when I was in the U.S. I had people go like, "You're not a Muslim." I'm like, "No, I am. I'm just one of the. I'm just one. I'm not like the extreme type that goes like shoves things in." And they'll be like, "No, I've had persons that tell me, you need to wear the hijab. You need." I'm like, "No, you don't." Especially females. A lot of the females like, "You need to wear the hijab." I'm like, "No, you don't need to wear the hijab. It's yeah, it is required of you, but you don't need to." And in the Quran, it says it's a choice. But once you stick with the choice, you should stick with it forever. Let's say in one case, which happened to me, I'm a hijabi, but I had a job where there's a job that I had to get, and one of the rules for that job, I had to take off my hijab so that I can work that job. Everyone, like the extremists, were like, no, 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 screw the job, you did this. And then one of the sheikhs, who's a much more moderate, he was like, is that job important? I'm like, well, the job is important because it's an internship and I can't graduate unless I get that internship. And he goes like, okay, take your hijab off because this qualifies as a life and death matter. You cannot graduate without an internship. Therefore, your hijab is standing in the way of that internship. Therefore, take off the hijab because you can graduate. And that's the difference between the two people. Again, with the same thing with reference, same thing with Buddhist, same thing with Taoism. Some Taoists will be like, no, you have to do this, you have to do that, and someone's will be like, hey, I don't care
After
about what
all,
happens.
like,
Yeah, I don't care about what
so
happens. In that situation. I care about the overall person. Is this overall person a good person, or is this overall person a bad person? That's all I care about. And it makes life so, I mean, a lot of things is just, you can't do that. You cannot allow yourself to be you can I always tell people, you cannot allow yourself to be a victim of your own beliefs, because yeah, you can just what I believe is right is different from what you believe is right. I can see something, we can see the same event happening, two sets of eyes, and I can see as this person being in the right, and you be like, no, this person is like, I can see this person as a good person, you can see this person as evil because of your set of moralities, which is going back to your translator with English, is like, yes, do not shove your moralities with that character, because again, there's a reason why this person is chill, or why this deity is chill, because this deity is, and again, we're going back to Islam, where when we talk about Allah, we always talk about Allah, Allah the merciful, Allah the kind, because if you truly read the Quran and you truly understand what it says, he gives you a lot of leeway. It's like, you know what, you screwed up, it's okay. You can do this, and you can do this thing, and you're gonna be fine. Or I like, and then the other thing was the with different religions, and now this is triggering for like those who have. This is talking about suicide, but the reason why a lot of religions be like, hey, if you do suicide, you go to hell, and the reason why they do that is because it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Now
yeah,
there are people who sadly they have passed away because of that, because they could not because they could not handle it, but because at that point in time,
they had one weak moment
well, it's
they
one
couldn't.
week, exactly, one week moment, they could not handle it. understandable. They've been through the depression. I've seen this case happen over and over again where somebody has been in depression. They have suicidal thoughts. They think that it's worthless. That you can't just live this on. I am not contributing. Like a lot of them will tell you this. I'm not contributing to society. It's better off being without me. I am a waste of air. I'm a waste of life. Now, with stories, when you have stories and you let them read stories, which is why I'm a huge advocate of reading, these characters end up talking to them like, hey, wait a second, you're not as bad as you think you are. You are important. You are with us. You are a great person. Don't think that way. Even if you have PTSD, it's like, okay, I have problems with this one. It's like, okay, your brain ends up becoming into like this huge defensive mechanism that kind of starts jolting there. And I'll be like, hey, you start, if you're going through PTSD, it jumps straight to that world you're in, that fictional world or that reality world, and jump straight there because it's going like, hey, I can't handle this trauma. I cannot handle this trauma now, so I'm just going to go. Oh, conclusion part of the story for visual was asking about how do you decide the conclusion part of the story? It concludes itself.
Yeah.
What does it mean by it concludes itself? You can, whether it's a tragedy or a happy ending or whatever it is. When you're writing it, what happens is as you write your story, you start seeing the ending while you're writing it, and it could be like you should not force the ending. Let's say you have a story that starts out happy, a happy story, and then it turns up into a tragedy. It's okay. It's the story wants. I also tell people, I'm like, the story
Don't
wants to
make it
write.
fit, right? Basically, that is what you're trying to say. Like, don't try so hard to make it fit. I'm
No.
guilty of doing that.
Yes, don't make it fit. Just let it flow. It's going to flow itself. It's going to write itself for you. Um, whether it's happy ending or it's sad ending, it's just going to flow itself to you, and it's going to be fascinating. You guys are going to have a lot of fun while writing it. And if you have deal with the other thing is writer's block. You're writing, you're in a flow, and all of a sudden your brain just stops, and you can't. You're like, you don't know what to do. You're stuck. Stand up, walk around, go spend some time outside, enjoy, leave it a couple of days, and come back to it again. That's Max idea is always just stand up, walk around, leave it for a couple of days if you have to, and then come back and write again. Don't worry about it. If you feel that you don't like, you're stuck because you don't like what's going on or what's going to happen, you're in another, it's okay. Don't worry about it again. It's fine. Uh, tragic story with a happy.
I'm with
Tra-
Shivani on this one.
yeah, visual.
Consulting, right?
Yeah, she said tragic story with a happy ending or happy story with a tragic ending. Which is more challenging to write? A tragic story with a happy ending because it tries itself as a tragedy. It's like, especially, it's very cathartic when it has a happy ending, but it's like you're sitting the entire time when you're writing it, you're going like, really? Do I really want to make them? But then you feel so sorry for the characters. You're like, I just want to have them have one happy thing happen to them. Um,
I mean, Naruto is it's not really a novel, but it's one of the
yeah, it's tragedy that turned into a happy ending.
yeah. But
Even
funny
though,
thing is that to this date, people are whining about Neji and Itachi dying. To this
yes,
day,
yes,
so it is difficult to turn like a tragic thing into a happy thing, and like difficult in the sense because tragedy, I think negative emotions, tragedy, it's more appealing to relate to rather than positive stuff. So when you have hinged yourself to the tragedy and you saw it become happy,
yeah.
you are still wondering why did that character not get the happy thing, you know?
Yes,
So
why is this? Yeah, why did it like with Naruto? Speaking of Naruto, like with the whole like Sakura and Sasuke, they ended up being together in the end. And you're like, so why did you have this entire fight in the beginning? Why, since you already planned to make them both to stay together, why did they have? And Sasuke at a lot of times
Have
tried
you
to
have you
kill.
read have you read Sasuke Retsuren? It's a light novel. It
Mhm.
explains, it puts things in concept, because again, this is a kid that saw his brother.
His entire village get wiped out by his
Yeah,
brother.
his clan get wiped out, and he thought his brother did it. Turns out, nope, the village
Nope.
made it. So
Hmm.
when you take into account trauma, and when you see him and his people and his kin get rejected, you become that person, right? You're like,
Yes.
I'm gonna reject everything. And then there was this character created who was not going to reject him no matter what. Sakura,
Yes.
I mean.
Yes.
So uh, that
I
Retsuren,
became the worst person ever, and yet you still love me the way I am. Therefore, I started to fall in love with you. That's a trope. It's a writing trope.
yeah,
It's one of the writing.
Sundre character in the
Sundari
anime.
characters, yes, and like the we hate you, and then I still love you, and
Yeah, not
I
good, not
no
good
with,
character
with
writing, but
no with anime the character that I like, but he's like you have, but if you have a stomach to watch his anime because it is a gut wrenching one and on more than one level, and there's a lot of like
Titans. Are you talking about the
not
Attack on
Attack
Titan?
on Titans. Attack on Titans is very political. I mean, if you want to see politics being done in an anime, that's the Attack on Titan.
I know, right?
Uh,
So do you
yeah,
mention Guttural? So I was like, maybe. What are you talking about essentially?
ReZero, ReZero,
Ah,
Subaru. Subaru is like the biggest tragic human being you have. He's very tragic, but at the same time, especially with the second season now with the anime, when you get to see you get to see him dealing with the witches. You
mhm.
start. You're like okay. You're like okay. Stop with the tragedy. We just have this guy have a happy ending, please, because this guy needs a happy ending. Uh, um,
I
for
think
those,
that is what
for
a lot of people had complaints with in terms of Game of Thrones ending, right? They
yeah,
did not like the ending at all.
no,
Like, this is a
yeah,
global phenomena that just went bloop
yeah,
because of the
exactly.
ending.
I know, and like I said, with super, for those who are not anime only or not animates, ReZero is basically this guy gets pushed into a world, into a virtual world, what they call Isaki, which is means into a fictional world, and he has to abide by abide by the rules of the fiction that the world is, and
Trope.
he gets the power of called it's called return by death, and basically means is whenever he dies, he gets times get resets, and he has to live that day again. So he starts doing different decisions so that he doesn't get the same death as like the last time. He dies too many times.
Yeah,
That's the
Netflix has
trap.
done a show called The Russian Doll, which is similar. Two
Hmm.
characters keep dying again and again and again and again. And
Yes.
uh, I saw it and I was like, this is smart plagiarism, because they literally took the concept from an anime.
Of ReZero. They took the concept of ReZero and the Subaru currently like in this season he finally meets the like the reason why he has that curse is because he has the cold quote unquote the witch of envy kind of possessed him. So this like you start meeting the different witches and you are sitting there like I don't want to see them. They are creepy. There's one called the Witch of Pride, and the moment they introduce her to you, she's a kid. Like she's literally a kid's face. She has a kid's voice. She's very innocent, but she holds Subaru's hand and she's shaking his hand. She goes like, if you are a sinner, you will feel pain. And Subaru is just sitting down there, and then when the camera zooms out, you're in for like the shock of your life because she just ripped out his entire arm off.
Mhm.
And he doesn't feel the pain. But then when he sees it, he looks at it, he goes like, wait a second. He's like, bring it
What
back.
happened?
He's like, bring me back. She goes like, you're a good person. You haven't felt pain. And then she goes like, well, if you are a sinner, you shall not be able to pass. and you just see Super's entire thing just crack down. It's like a doll, and he just cracks up and starts falling to bristles. And this is how scary she is. And the way they play it out, she's just this chill kid. I mean, like, this is scary. And then they bring in like the Witch of Wrath, and she's like this ultra healer who's
Hmm.
like she's angrily putting him together. She goes like, "I hate you. I'm just gonna heal everyone." And you're like, "That's a good
Like
thing." Well,
the Byakuya seal, right? That Tsunade and Sakura have. It's like it goes
exactly.
off, it even gets healed. Like
Yes.
healed.
I'm gonna excuse myself. I'm gonna introduce you kids to somebody.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I'll answer a question that has come in, which is it worth writing a story based on current Sushant case whose conclusion is still undecided? As a writer, what you do you think would be the best end for this story? So I am not following the Sushant case at all because technically speaking, that is up to the lawyers and the police to conclude on the same. But from a story point of view, uh, as I was talking with, I think I was talking about it with Rashmi. Whenever you have such big industries, there is cartelization, which is a factor. And what happens is certain members of society have too much power, right? And then certain cases come along which kind of question those power. And then they get PR industries involved, and everyone is flinging shit at each other. And there is nothing positive to come out of
That is
this,
all.
so to speak.
Now I need you guys to introduce you to my little kids. He's 1 year, 1 and a year half old. Hi.
Hello.
He just he was like he's the kid that's been crying in the background for a while now.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I used to
Like,
cry a lot at night. I used to cry entire night, and then I would sleep in the morning. So
that's
I
good.
was mean and annoying to my parents. But yeah, to actually answer the question, I think the best end to this story would be people stop being judge, jury, and executioners, and let
Mhm.
the legal system figure it out. If essentially the reason why I'm not a fan of citizen journalism is citizen journalism kind of presents observations and not facts. So you look at someone and you go, oh, that person looked XYZ. And you mention whatever your bias is. If you hate the person, you'll say negative things. If you like the person, you say positive things. Right? And that keeps getting piled on and on and on. And some people are very easy to hate. So I think that is what has been happening. And we don't really know, right? We're not the police. We don't have the evidence. So the best end to this story would be uh, if it was a if it was a suicide, people responsible for driving him to it, they are charged, for abetting murder, so to speak. If it
Yes.
was a murder, people who were responsible for it get caught. That would be the best end to the story. Some people being held accountable for a tragedy that has happened, right? Uh, from a fiction perspective, I mean, I haven't been following the case in detail, so I couldn't really put a spin on it. Because see, at the end of the day, one person has died. Whether he died on his own or somebody pushed him to death, we don't know yet. But it's not going to be a happy ending because one person is dead already. You know.
So unless you want to
So
write an alternative time where where that person did not die, or that person through the jump moved into a different world. I mean, if you
oh
want
yeah,
to
yeah, that could happen. Yeah, that's
in
true.
a fictional world, even though it's based on a reality, but you have to put into consideration since that person died, the conclusion is the same. It's going to be a tragic ending in the same. This person is going to die one way or another. But you could have a totally different world and then have that person live in a happy world there. And therefore, when they show him again as being dead, he at least he had a happy section of his life.
Yeah. In death, he gets validation. That I think suppose
Yes.
this is actually a celebrity in India, that Sushant Singh Rajput.
Mm-hmm.
He we found out that it was reported as it being a suicide, and then over the
Mm-hmm.
past 2 months there was a lot of evidence that showed It wasn't a suicide. It was he was given drugs, so he was probably driven to suicide, or he was given
Hmm.
enough drugs that he died, and his body was
Or
produced and all
overdose.
that.
Yeah.
So there are two theories that are happening, and I don't know the details, but yeah, I know the vague things, because
Hmm.
it's literally the one thing that all our news channels are focusing on.
Hmm.
With the conflict with China happening, somehow the celebrity is getting more focus than that, which is sad. But yeah. So Vishal, what you could do is, if you want to create a happy ending, you could launch an alternative timeline,
Hmm.
where, as Nada points out, uh, he makes a choice that allows him to live a better life. And the many worlds theory, this is a quantum mechanics theory, which suggests that at every instance in time, there are many copies of us as a person,
Yes.
that exist, and each copy is making a different choice, and based on that choice, uh, their future changes. So, like Binati of reality A, world A is going to be different from Binati of reality
Yes.
A, world B, right?
Yeah.
And it's like a chain reaction, the many worlds theory. So maybe you can turn Shushan's tragedy in this universe into like a multiverse situation, and make it into a happy ending sci-fi kind of a thing.
You can. That's one option. Like Bennett said, that's one option. You can have a lot of different worlds. Parallel world. They actually, speaking of parallel worlds, NASA actually a couple of months ago actually did discover the fact that there might actually be parallel worlds. They're
I
actually
think
like
scientific.
scientific. They found like something of a time place where the time was just like wacky there, and I'm like, please let it be true. Please let it be true. Please let it be true. But they're actually parallel lives,
I
and they're
want to
actually
be alive when time travel becomes a thing. You kind of have these weird theories. So I was listening to an Elon Musk interview, and somebody
Mhm.
asked him like, "When are you going to Mars?" And he got so sad. He got so sad on the spot, because he's like, "I don't think I will be able to go to Mars in my lifetime, but my company
Mhm.
will take people to Mars and stuff like that." Because science has a way it progresses, right? And the
Yeah.
sad reality of not sad, but upsetting reality of science is, it relies a lot on financing, and
Yes.
secondly, it relies on a motivating factor, as in, generally that motivating factor turns out to be war. War accelerates scientific progress, like,
Mhm.
and we don't want war. So, I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, NASA doesn't have a lot of funding to look into a lot of the things that it wants to look into, but
Mhm.
they have a massive cache of knowledge that you could capitalize on, right? So you could
Mhm.
pick up some scientific concept and turn it into a scientific principle. You can pick up spirituality and merge it with science, because spirituality says there are planes of existence. This is
Mhm.
the the physical plane.
Yes. Yes.
Once we die, it's the metaphysical plane. So when you descend from this into the metaphysical plane, like say
Yes.
Sushant dies and goes to the metaphysical
Mhm.
plane, from then
Mhm.
on, he could become some kind of a superhero types thing, or
Maybe a superhero. He could be reincarnated if you believe in
yeah, yeah,
reincarnation
yeah. Of course, and
and things like that.
Hinduism is that, right? You have a river, your soul goes into it, and depending on your karma, you come back as a
Either
animal or
human being or either an animal or what type of animal, or you could be
yeah,
which is why Hinduism they worship cows because some of the thought is this person the guy that just died might be that cow that just right in front of me.
yeah, yeah. You can
It's,
turn a sad situation into a humorous situation, right? So
yes.
Sushant liked to fly. He used to I think like to fly or hated to fly, not really sure. So he could
Mhm.
reincarnate as a bird, right, and watch his criminal brought to justice from a tree.
Mhm.
That could be your happy ending. So that's the thing about fiction. You can take it anywhere, but or you have to look into a lot of possibilities. and then lie down or sit in whatever position you are comfortable in, and just think of a lot of scientific, spiritual, political, sundry, etc. Limit, limitless, so to speak.
Oh, that. Oh, there.
Do we have any other questions?
If you have any other questions,
Yeah, let's because generally there happens to be a lag in when we are talking and when it goes live
mm-hmm.
on. I think somewhere around a minute. So,
Okay.
mhm. I'm not really sure yet, but ooh,
One sec. I'm just gonna apologize for 1 second.
that's okay. That's okay.
This one? Oh, bye bye. Bye bye. Yeah, I'll just be right back, okay?
That's all right. That's all right.
Sorry. Okay.
So what else? Is there any question, or do we end this for today? And I'm not really sure about the time yet, but on Saturday we'll have Rashmi come on with us and talk to us about fiction, and we're still discussing what exactly she could teach us because she has a lot to teach us. So
Yeah.
if we kind of categorize the process, it becomes easier to take it forward. So yeah, next Saturday we'll have Rashmi on. But
Awesome.
yeah, now that Nada is back, any
Yes, I
questions
am
from
very sorry, guys, about my look. And I already gave him to his sister. I was like, here, have your brother.
don't be sorry at all. I think that's to reiterate a point that was made earlier. Real life is messy. Real life is not like scripted and perfect and
It's
pure
it,
airbrushed and stuff.
it is
So
not. As you've seen, you can have like your look and walk. But he was been crying like the entire time. So finally, in the end, I was like, you know what, just have him here. And then now I was like, he's like, as is here, he's just like walking around trying to like do anything. I'm like, just like say bye bye now, let's go. like, like here you go. Yeah, but it's writing as in life is you need a lot of research, you need a lot of thinking, and you need to write. Reading is important. No matter where you think, no matter how much you think you know, or how think or your information. Some people I've seen do like they're like, oh, I've seen countless number of movies. I can make a script for movies. No, you can't. I mean, you could try, but it's it's a whole different thing. It's a whole different ball game when you're writing a story or you're writing a piece of nonfiction or a piece of fiction than it is doing a script for a movie, because in a movie you have a lot of visual things that will fill in
yeah,
that
exactly.
part. Yeah, that will fill in that part, that fill in the world imagination. But with
Which
stories,
we have to use vocabulary, right, to kind of
you have to use
stimulate the psyche.
vocabulary. Yes,
He's
no,
rustled, his speech slurred, stuff like that.
exactly. Like when I explain, okay, I'll give you an example of a world. If I'm to tell you that there is a world that is I use the description go like it's a masterpiece in reality. Everyone is going to have a different point of view of what quote unquote masterpiece is.
Hmm.
But if I explain it as in like greenery till the eye till to the horizon, and here's the thing with vocabulary, you don't have to use
Fancy
complex
words.
words. This Albert Einstein says it best. He goes like anybody can explain anything. It takes a true genius to explain things simply. Um,
Yes.
if you can send in the picture of you can send in the picture, like you can send in for instance is with Fictember. One of the things was one of the prompts I had was sunny rainbow rain, and I'm going like everyone's when they think sunny rainbow rain, they're like it is the most amazing thing. But I was able to turn sunny rainbow rain into something from like very fun, and it's something extremely like, oh my god, there's sun, there's rainbow, and there's rain. Things are getting bad to something that is bad. and it takes the vocabulary you're using, and it takes the world that you're in, the place that you're in, things like that. One of the things is one of the characters is the queen of succubi, and succubus are creatures. They're quote unquote lustful creatures, and they're a creature that's really 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 compared to every single human they will think as a bad person, but in context of the story they don't really do that. When they do things like that, they actually, first of all, they, from whatever the prey is, whoever their prey is, they actually take consent. They're like, hey, I'm going to start taking your life force, are you okay with that? And if the partner is okay, it's like, okay, I'm okay with you taking my life force. They don't binge eat, they don't like eat a lot, they're like just
Yeah,
little
yeah.
nibbles,
Little
enough.
nibbles.
Yeah, little nibbles, because I don't want this person to have, this person's supposed to have a good experience, they're not having a good experience, they're dying. I don't want that.
So I
um,
think incubi, succubi, right? These are two
yes,
words that sound very similar.
they are the same creature, only the incubi is the male version and the succubi is
Succubus
the
is the female version.
succubus is
So
the
exactly,
female.
yeah, that is what vocabulary does, right?
Yes.
The succubi sauntered into the room.
Yes, and he goes like, okay, and so when people go like, they're like, okay, that's an evil creature coming in, and you're like, but when you start realizing that they themselves have again rules that they have to, and if they one of the things with their rules is if they do find a binge eater, they end up killing that binge eater because you don't want somebody who's just going around killing people senselessly, taking life force. There's a purpose for that life force that they're taking, and the research behind that is actually based not in Christianity but actually in medieval England. That's if you want to read about it more, that's actually where you start finding first information reiteration of what they are, and it's the reiteration of the fact that they have a set of rules that it's not, because back in medieval, quote unquote, back in medieval, they used to think of all different type of mythological, and they're like, hey, there's these, and what they're based on in reality was the brothels,
Yeah.
which is again, it's
I
another.
know what you're talking about exactly
Yes.
because I was looking into paganism and I
Mhm.
had come across some of these references where things that were not understood by people who used to follow certain medieval trends would be
Mhm.
labeled as some form of a monster.
Yes, some form of a monster, and again, you see that a lot in history. You see that also with another one of the monsters is quote unquote Bluebeard. If you've ever read the story of Bluebeard, he's actually based off a French marshal in reality with Joan of the Arc. Marshal Gilles de Rais actually is the reason behind Bluebeard, and the reason behind that was he was infatuated with Joanne to the point where he just went insane after she died. And
Hmm.
because of this insanity, he started spending his money. He was a rich nobleman, and he started spending his money entirely on lavish things. So the church went into him and was like, "Hey, you can't spend this money." So he starts going like, "I can do whatever I want to do with my money." So they ended up coercing him into calling him to this. They called him a demon. They called him that he was a pedophile, that he was a person that just killed children. For 7 years, he ended up killing children. He was killing them, torturing them, doing things. And that's where the word blue beard starts coming in, because his beard was so blue from the blood. And that's what they call. And when he ended, what in reality is he just killed one priest. So the church coerced him into confessing this one, and therefore, when you see him this, like when they say about him, when they talk about him in different genres, they always refer to him as a demon, and John of the Ark as an angel. So, and it's like this demon is in love with an angel, and it's again, it's based on reality, but and it's based on the historics behind it is fascinating. Um,
Yeah.
which is why I
And
have.
even if you don't want to look into stories, look into vocabulary. The
Yes.
etymology of certain words, that is going to give you a hint. Like pharmakia, literally witches, women who used to heal people, paganist women, witches who used to heal people, pharmakia, and now we have pharmacy, right? So if you look at certain root words, uh, you see how the kind of logic behind dominating people that were not uh, saying yes to your beliefs was demonize them and turn
Yes.
them into cat. Like I think the witch trials
Salem
metaphor
witch
was,
trials. Abigail
yeah,
Williams.
they happened in the United States and
Hmm.
Europe simultaneously, right?
Yes.
Where even if they had nothing to do with each other in terms of political beliefs,
It's
yet
because
somehow
women were objecting through they were objecting that they were trying they were showing that, hey, we are as intelligent as you are. So um, the majority by then were like, hey, these women are smart, they're actually talking, they might actually cause a lot of problems, because women were like, why do I work for free and you get
get paid,
paid? Why do I have to do this and you don't have to do that? And they
they
got
called them
labeled
witches.
witches. They got labeled
Yes.
witches because they were troublemakers.
So not to make this about not to make this about events in India, but we have like literally there's a witch trial happening in India right now,
Mhm.
indirectly, about the case that was mentioned, and like a grown man who passed away, of course, but grown man couldn't make a decision because this evil woman had did stuff to him. I'm like, no.
She has used witchcraft on him, and she has
Yeah.
enamored him with
I
her
mean,
looks.
she might have, we don't know, but
Mhm.
that doesn't give you the right to, persecute people. And
Yes.
that, neatly drafts into history repeating itself because lot of conservatives, I think, this is a problem on the religious
Mhm.
right, so to speak. Uh, they are, there's
Yes.
there, I don't really know how to phrase this properly because the topic is so sensitive, so to speak. But essentially, people,
I understand where you're coming from, and I know what you're talking about.
yeah, those you don't like as a person, instead of just ignoring them, it is easier to label them as something and just reject them and hate them.
Mhm.
So that is what a lot of lore, I think, lot of negative lore comes
Yes.
from group of outcasts that were too difficult to defeat. So they are monsters. Let us kill them.
Exactly. They are totally different from the status quo. They cannot fathom. They're the bad people. They're the reason why our quote unquote harmony is being broken. The fact that there is a the harmony or the status quo has been it's yeah the whole thing is fascinating because it gives you again a lot into the psyche of people, especially the quote unquote the psyche of the majority. It's
Hmm.
always the majority is always going against the minority, whatever the minority is. They're like, you are the minority, you're the different person, therefore you are the evil person and we are the right people, because I mean it makes that's what makes logical sense.
Tribalism. Comes
Yeah.
back to tribalism. Yeah.
Yes, it makes more sense with the majority. I'm the majority. We have done this for the last 400 years. Why are you all of a sudden trying to change that, or trying
Hmm.
to do this different? Or why are, and then what they don't understand is change is inevitable. You are going to get change. Whether you like it or not, there is change. One of the best examples is with currently with COVID. COVID forced a lot of companies to start going like, hey, we could actually have our employees work from home, which
Yeah.
in which ended up benefiting women, especially mothers, because I could stay in the house, I could take care of the kids at the same time do my work. I don't have to be like at work with the phone like on my ears, going like, "Hey, did you feed the kid? Did you feed this one? Did you have this one? Was the kid good? Is the kid all right?" And then having the problem with like school phoning you up in the middle of work, going like, "Your kid is a little bit hot, so you have to leave everything and just run there." Now that you're working home, you're like, okay, if there is an emergency, I can just like go take care of it and come back and do my work normally, and there is no breaking in that part. You don't have it to have it, and they found out that it actually costs less to have people who work from home
Yeah.
because
There's
again,
a statistic that shows number of deaths due to accidents has gone down
yes,
since the invention of the automobile.
exactly.
So you will find an angle, positive, negative, neutral, in
Mhm.
almost every situation, including like the global pandemic that we have
Yes.
going on.
And if it wasn't for the internet, now if it wasn't for the internet, which was created in World War II, me and you
Exactly.
would not have this conversation. Like I'm in Egypt, you're in India, and we have people from like all around the world. We would not have this conversation if it wasn't for like the fact. So yes, there was horrible things that happened in the past, but because of that, we have things, and that's why a lot of the stories you read, they're like there's a past, there's a tragedy that happened, but again, here's the positivity of it, or
Mm.
there's something happy that happened, because if none of this, if World War II did not happen, we would not have had the internet. If a lot of the espionages did not happen, which is horrible, we would not have a lot of like the current inventions we currently have, like the cameras, things like that. They were all used for like a lot of them were used for studying. Heck, the sweetener was an accident.
The what?
The sweetener, the sugar,
Oh,
the
yes, 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 yes. Same,
that
same with
actually
ramen. Same with ramen and
with
all the
ramen, there were
noodles. They
yeah,
were
they were
war food.
accidents.
They were war foods.
Yes, well, one of them was an accident. The other one is a war food because they had to have portions because
Hmm.
they couldn't grow their stuff and they didn't have time to cook. They needed something that they could put it in, put some hot water, and eat fast, and that's it. Let's go because we currently have our lives are at stake. So it's fascinating, this entire thing again. And if you watch, if you look at what we're trying to say, and if you look at this entire world as like one big story that's being written and still is in writing, it will change how you look at things, and you will start seeing things from a different perspective. You will no longer look at it as I am myself. For instance, for me, not as a Muslim. Therefore, any other religion is wrong, and therefore this one, and these people are wrong. These people are not good. Different from the fact that if I look at the thing as a story, I'm like, these are different characters. And it's good. Just one second. بخلص أنا.
That's
قربت أخلص يا باشا.
so yeah. That's
Yeah.
true. That's
So
true. Break your biases first of all. To reiterate something that me and Sudeshna talked about last time as well, which is
Mhm.
have diversity in the people
Mhm.
and the perspectives you interact with. Don't just
Mhm.
go along with and books because you can't just keep reading one thing and
No.
expect to have
A worldview.
no.
Read
You
from
won't
different worlds.
have it. Yeah, you need the observer's perspective. You need the actual is the wrong word, but the predominant perspective,
Yes.
and you need the devil's advocate perspective. You need all three to have the perfect story to then weave it into your own narrative or your own characters or your
Mhm.
own design, I think.
Yes. And you are your own creator, so enjoy it. Enjoy your writing process. Enjoy your reading. Have fun,
Yeah.
and don't worry about it. You screw up, it's okay. You're gonna try again.
Yeah, that's why editing exists. It's like if you made a mistake, you go boop 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 backspace, delete,
Yes,
done.
exactly. You don't have any problems. You like, and it's enjoy it. Like I always tell people, I'm like enjoy life. It's a lot of fun if you give it the chance to. Yes, there are things that happen that are horrible. There are things that happen that are tragic, but in the end, it's um, it's a beautiful thing. It's something my grandpa used to say all the time to me. My grandpa was a teacher, so he used to tell me all the time. He would be like, "Life is fun. Just enjoy it."
Yeah, yeah. And this is like a LinkedIn tip as well, so to speak. So if you're doing any form of writing, I do nonfiction, so that is my advice is most about nonfiction. So when you work on non-fiction pieces, again, there's a lot of research that's involved that gets arranged, and then a lot of information from the research gets rejected. In the sense that it is perfect information, but because of the word count and because of the flow, you have to make a decision to take certain things out. So instead of deleting the thing that you have written completely, what you could do is you could repurpose the thing that you are planning to delete. So cut out all the stuff that you were going to delete and post it into another document, and then turn that into like some form of a thought post on LinkedIn. That's literally what I do. Most of the things that I reject from my articles, they go as the LinkedIn post, right? So you have made the effort of writing. Don't waste it. Just repurpose it into something else. So you can store it in a document where you can use that epiphany or that fact or something at some point in time. So maybe do that. Whatever notes you've made or whatever writing that you've done, you discover that this is not relevant or this doesn't really gel with the thing. Repurpose it, remove it, and repurpose it. That's it. So you're not even wasting time and you're getting something out of it.
That is true.
So in terms of September, and I think most of you know, the most of you who are with us on the live, you know what September is, which is we are writing microfiction on every day of September. So the stories that you are putting out for September, are they excerpts from your book, or are you like, writing all of them
I'm
using?
writing it. They're not excerpts from the book. They are. I'm actually writing them, but I am trying my best to have them be like into like the. If you read the first one, the second one, the third one, it kind of makes sense once you start reading them together, and it's like it's the way it's written. Like for and that's why yesterday's one with the ice cream one, I was like, I can kind of a little bit show a little bit about Migru herself and show you what type of personality she is through just an ice cream shop,
Yeah.
um, and so on and so forth, and kind of show you the trauma of because the one before it was the son, the happy little son thing that ended up with like an entire realm being destroyed. Um, you kind of see the aftermath of it with Migro taking the last survivor to an ice cream shop, and that survivor has not seen an ice cream shop in their entire life. They're like, "What's this thing here?"
What's this
Yeah, they're not.
weird thing?
Yeah, what's this like this? What's this weird thing that's actually? And then the beauty of September is you're forced to choose your words
Yeah.
because you have only limited amount of words. You do not have the 100. I used to think first that you had the entire 1,300 characters. So I was like, yay! Then I'm like, no, you kind of have about 100 words. You need to write this entire excerpt on 100 words to make it sound legit, understandable. People that understand it, it makes sense from a point of view. So, and how it, like how do you introduce an entire lore into September? Yeah, exactly. To that much, how are you gonna entire? So what I've decided was I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna take this whole thing as if it's an alternative universe, and I'm just gonna take it and like start laying the laws of a little bit of the laws every now and then. So you got to see a deathling actually like interacting, how they're interacting and how they're different from like death itself. They're like little death angels. So they're like just they have the same power, but they're kind of still learning the ropes. Um, and then also the fact that actually death is not a singular thing, but there's multiple different types of it, which bases back again with the mythos and the different underworlds and different things. So it will make more sense that there's more than one death. Yes, there's the original again, which is the whole point of this ancient races. I am the original, but there are other people behind me, or there are other people that got us. And the way ancients are, there's part of this one. There's a ritual to ascend a person to being to the status of being one of the race of an ancient race. The room keeper actually gets that. Like the entire story, the room keeper isn't quote unquote an ancient, but he gets ascended to it because of the stuff that he does and how he ends up becoming a helpful. He becomes kind of like the therapist of like the entire race. He's kind of like their therapist because he's lived that long. So he's like he kind of knows what's going through their heads, and they base a lot of them actually basically what they end up doing is they end up popping into his realm and they're like, hey, I'm an unannounced guest and I'm coming because I need to have some problems and I need to like talk about it. And he's like, okay, fine, go.
Go for it. Let's
Go.
start with it.
He's like, I don't have any other option to kick you. I can't really kick you out. You're
That is
an
very
uninvited guest. You're coming at a horrible time, but I have to listen to you. And that's why he ends up getting ascended into being an ancient because they're like, we can't just be taking, and not giving anything in return. So we're gonna give you that. It can't, the thing that comes with ancients is they're long living. They are not immortals. There's a difference between an immortal and a long living. They're long living, and they
Like
cannot die.
what happened with what is this thing that came out? The old guard, right? The old guard. They
Yes,
have that. They are not
yes.
immortal. They die at some point, but like at some point is a
Oh,
very big subset.
way like they can be killed. They can have all these things happen to them. They just live for a very long time. So you have one that has been the queen, the quote unquote queen, who she always tells people she's like, I'm not the queen. They're like, yes, you're the queen because you're like the original. You're
The
like
first
the
one,
one.
like
Yeah,
Lilith,
you're
like
like
the
what? You're like the first person that ever was created that's from this race. You're the first person of this race. And she has a whole different, like, she starts out being arrogant, cocky, and it's like, yes, I'm this one and I'm that one. But then she gets humbled when she starts living in the life and she starts interacting with different people. She starts getting humbled, and she turns from this like really cocky person into this like motherly type of like, well, I want to protect you guys because I've seen some things. And then she always refers back to the ancient wars and she goes like, I don't want that to happen again.
I'm over.
Because I'm over that. We don't want to do that. We don't want to have that one happen again because it starts okay. The definition of the ancient words is the world. The lore is it starts out with called the first world, and that was a world where all the realms were together. Everything was one simple thing, and it was very simple. But because of the war and because of the power struggles, it started splitting into different realms. So you get the different quote unquote different realms. You get the human world, you get the spiritual world, you get the underground, you get all of that because of that war. It kind of splits its things up. And so she doesn't want that to happen again because she talks about how history doesn't know everything that happened. I have seen things. Like when she talks to people, she goes like, I have seen realms get destroyed and history will never remember them because they no longer exist and they have been wiped out of the memories of everyone except for me and that's the thing with the ancients. They remember things. They remember everything they've seen. They remember all the past and the present. They cannot see the future. I mean, they don't have clairvoyance, but they see the future. And when people tell them, they do meet a clairvoyant person who goes like, I can see the future, and they're like, and Migro goes, you can see one future, you cannot see all of them.
All of them, yeah, because the
Yeah,
future gives you possibilities.
yes,
Past fixed future is like it's up to you,
no,
and
you
it's up
can't. You see, you're seeing one timeline. You're seeing. And she explains. She's like, there's more than one timeline. You have to understand that every choice you make is different. There's different outcomes for it. When she explains it to the deathlings because part of her job as an ancient is she has to explain the rules to the death to like the descendants. So she's like, you can change one thing now, but you don't know what's going to happen at the end of it. And one of the death things is like, so what? And she goes like, we could have this very conversation at this very time, and it could lead into a second ancient war. And we could have this conversation at this very time with this very same word, and it could end up with having the main villain is called the immortal, the true alchemist. She goes like, it could have the immortal alchemist could be that. but
I
it
think
depends.
alchemists make the philosopher's stone and the clear
They
liquid,
make the
right?
philosopher's stone, and yes, and I actually
I
explained
forgot the name of the liquid that
the
heals everything.
elixir. The
Elixir,
elixir,
elixir. Yes,
yes,
elixir.
they do make them. I actually explained how the philosopher's stone is being made. It is not a pretty thing.
It is
uh,
not a pretty thing. I think Fundamental Alchemist did a take on that.
yes, yes, when they
It
talk about
is
how it sucks the entire souls of everything, that is exactly what a philosopher's stone does. It erases all of the people that lived at that time. It erases them from existence and takes their
takes
life
their
essence.
chi or life force
Yes,
and
takes
everything,
life
which is a
force,
powerful thing.
it takes and creates this powerful tool that could quote unquote create your all, like, break the rules of like the equality. Yes, you, it still does. Again, it's the rules again. It's still doing the rule, only you can't see it because you don't see all the souls that are being inside the thing. That's why it
Yeah.
doesn't work infinitely. It works for a certain amount of time, and then it loses its power because again it lost all of that equal things. And it's,
Mm.
if
Yeah.
it's fascinating. It's just the whole. That's why again that's the other reason why I love animes, because they take the concept and they just run with it. One of
They
my
go
favorite.
all in. They go all
Yes.
in without wondering about censorship, without wondering about
Doesn't
what would
matter.
my audience say. No, the
No,
audience is
that.
going like, how are they going to outsmart this awful thing that they did? And
Yes.
they do it. They one up it. Like
Yes.
the entire Boruto community is losing their mind right now because villain of the villain of the villain of the villain is introduced, and we are like, give us more.
Like I just, I want some more now. Please give us more. No, one of my favorite animes is called Fate Grand Order, and the reason why I love it is because it is a battle royale between mythos. It's basically the question people ask: if I have different types of historical figures, if I have different types of, and they go into like a battle royale, who's going to win? And I absolutely love it because they have the people who did the anime. They've done their research. Like they have little bits and pieces and like the different characters. I'm going like, as somebody who loves mythology, I look at it and I'm just like soaking it up and very happy. They have actually, speaking of Indian, they actually have Arunjas in there. They have Karnas in there. Pavadi's in there. Pavadi is like the sweetest little deity ever, but she's like destructive. She's very
She has the destructive avatar. Like you piss her off, she's going to be like, I will.
yeah. He's like, I am going to smite you now, but other than that, she's like really sweet personality, and that's how she is in the anime. She's a very sweet person, but she's. And then they have like Merlin. Merlin is like the biggest trickster ever, and it takes like the whole Camelot thing. It explains again. It's the everything about it. It's what I love about it is because, like I said, they've done their research. So you can't point out and go like, "Hey, that's not correct." You're like, "No, that actually makes sense." They actually will think that way, or they will act like that way. They just, I mean, another thing. They just, what was her name? I forgot the deity's name, but the elephant. She's always represented by the elephant in Indian mythology. I forgot who it was.
Ganesh,
Banish, I think. I
Ganesh,
think.
Ganesh.
Ganesh, yes, I think that's the person. They
Yeah,
have they have
Ganesh
they
is there.
have they have yes, they have her. They in the figure they have her as a she, but they have her, and it's like with the elephant and everything, and it's just like her. It's fascinating because again they've done it, and the reason why we're enjoying it, the reason why we enjoy Naruto, the reason why we enjoy all of these different animes is again they've done their research. They've
Yeah.
established the rules. They've established everything so that when you see it, you're like, it makes sense, and then you're enjoying it because you're like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Or the story,
Looking forward to what comes next. I think that is the most important bit, right?
yes, yes,
Hooking the people for the next chapter or the next episode.
exactly. Hooking them up, understand them, let them explain everything. Do enjoy it, have fun. Again, yeah.
Hmm? Fascinating. So,
It is.
to summarize, I think almost everything that we've talked about, I think we've aptly titled this episode, which is read a lot, research a lot, then look
Yes.
back upon your research and start defining some rules. And then,
Yes.
based on the rules that you define, make your characters.
Hmm.
And when you make your characters, don't make them sort of break their character. So if it's a rule follower, ensure that it keeps following rules unless and until it has some very compelling reason to not follow rules.
Yes.
And don't chase a genre as in I'm going to write a happy story or I'm going to write a sad story. Just keep writing and let your story play out to its
Hmm.
conclusion or to its next part.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
edit it mercilessly. Edit your
Yes.
content to create a scene in the mind of your readers rather
Yes.
than just giving them information.
Yes. Don't show them, don't tell them. It's
Yes,
yes.
very,
Show, don't
very
tell. And it's
that's
okay. And it's okay to edit yourself again. Yes, edit yourself mercilessly. If after writing the story and you're reading it, it makes no sense. It's okay. You can change it. It's not gonna. Oh, it's not a task that I need to finish. It is an entire journey you need to do.
yes, yes. So, is there anything else you'd like to add? Because we've surpassed 2 hours now.
I know I'm very like I'm telling my apology. I know I always apologize a lot, so I do. But what I want to summarize is enjoy it, enjoy the process itself, research a lot, do your research, think about it, and then do your writing. Enjoy it. Don't feel like you have to finish it. You don't have to finish it. You can do it. Can be a continuous thing. That's why sequels are there in movies.
Sequels,
Yeah.
prequels.
Exactly, sequels, because it's a never ending. And think of it again. Don't think of it as a task. Think of it as a journey. It's a journey you're taking, and enjoy it because it is quite the journey. And then you will learn a lot of things about yourselves while you're writing, and a lot of things about the
Yes.
world around. Yeah, and you'll look into things differently. It's worth it. It is
Yes.
worth it. And enjoy and if we're let's do it for Fictember. Enjoy Fictember. Go for it. Have fun. You're gonna discover a lot of new things in there. And
Yep.
thank you very much, Benadi, for having me with you. I
Yeah, and
appreciate it.
one of these days we'll pick up some mythology from someplace, and I'll invite Mel on, and you invite Mac on because Mel is
Sure.
somebody who loves having these discussions, and we'll show people how how you kind of break the characters apart by
Mac
looking
is
into
amazing at that. Mac is amazing at breaking down the entire characters and
yeah,
remaking them again.
yeah.
And
So that would be a
he is a
great
guy
learning
with
experience for all of
yes,
us.
he's a guy with a wealth of information.
That would be
Amazing guy.
fantastic. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you
You're
so much for
welcome.
being so candid about your own characters, which was fantastic. And
You're welcome.
thank you for joining Fictember and the live. See you soon
Thank
on
you
the
very
next
much.
one. And thank
I'll
you
see
for
you guys soon. Okay. Bye bye.